We're here with Dan Sullivan. He's a representative for District 53 in Jonesboro, and he's a state senator-elect. Dan, thank you so much for joining us, taking the time out to kind of explain what's going on at our state capitol.
Sure.
And I'd like to ask you, what's going on with China? You know, with the COVID-19 issue, China has been the topic of a lot of our discussion. So what can you tell us about China and Arkansas?
Sure. And, you know, China is an important market for Arkansas, for our farm market, and we are an important market for China. You know, I know they produce many of the goods that we sell at many of our retail stores and all across Arkansas. So there's a real relationship there that we need. It needs to be strong. And as President Reagan used to say, it's always trust but verify. You know, we want to make sure that our China values us before we try to move forward in our relationship with China. And right now that trust is really shaken. You know, China has not treated our farmers very well. They've not treated our nation very well. And as we in Arkansas decide on how much business we're going to do with China, we need to be very circumspect and looking at those contracts, looking at what they're doing, looking at the promises they make and the true outcomes. You know, they made a huge promise a number of years ago, maybe 4 or 5 years ago, to build a huge lumber plant down in Arkadelphia. And there were all kinds of promises made. We were depending on that, millions of dollars. And now that's fallen through. All that, the economy that could have been boosted by that, we've lost all of that. You know, China boycotted the beans and the rice products from Arkansas and really hurt our farmers for a while. And I'm thankful for the president to standing up to that and saying, we are not going to, you know, China, you will not treat our U.S. economy this way. We're going to control what that economy is. And as you know, the president's done a number of things to try to bring industry back here. You know, another very obvious one is the PPE, the personal protective equipment, that is much of it made in China. And they control the distribution. And they were withholding some of that and even buying it back. And here we are in Arkansas begging China to help us by sending us some of that product. When, as the president has said, we need to start trying to manufacture some of that right here in the United States, maybe even right here in the state of Arkansas.
Well, when you hear all the controversy about China, especially with our governor, you know, there's been a lot of talk about Asa Hutchinson, you know, working very closely to Chinese. He has offices overseas that's actually in China right now. Is there any correlation between, you know, Asa and China when it comes to, you know, his personal politics and, you know, his shortcomings with that nation?
You know, I'm not, I know those questions are out there. And I know the legislature has asked the governor at least once when he was testifying before, or presenting, I don't think he was testifying, but presenting before committee. He was asked about that several times. And he says there's no conflict of interest and he's operating openly and transparently. And until I see evidence to the contrary, then I'm going to believe him, as I would any fellow legislator that comes before us. But I think it's really a concern of you know, what's going on in the state. And I'll give you an example. You know, at Henderson State University down in Arkadelphia, we just found out their bookkeeping was terrible to the point of $6 to $10 million that we're having to bail them out. And we find out in the course of that investigation, not only did they have a meth lab operating at the chemistry department, but we found out the president and someone else at the university had made 10 to 15 or so trips to China. And we asked, well, who's paying for that? Well, evidently the college is, and evidently, you know, the purpose was to recruit students back to Arkansas. So I called the Bureau of Legislative Research today, and I've asked the Bureau of Legislative Research to send out a survey to all of our colleges in Arkansas. I'd just like to know how many trips we are making and the taxpayers funding over to Arkansas. What is the cost of those trips? What's the purpose of those trips? And what's the outcome? So, for example, if you're trying to recruit students from China, then I'd like to know, how many did you want? How many did you get? And is it really worth the money that we're putting in there? And by the way, for those that are interested, as soon as we finish this, I'll probably ask who's going to other countries and what other countries we're spending money going to trying to recruit, and what is our cost benefit to those outlays. I think I spoke to you the other day about the Confucius Institute, which we have on the campus at UCA. I just looked up on the computer, and I think we have sent some 350 odd high school students, well, not odd high school students, 350 high school students, we have sent them over to a camp in China. And I just would like to know what benefit is that to the state of Arkansas? Is there a cost to the state of Arkansas? And just why we're doing those things. So I think there's a real concern in the legislature at this time to really examine what our cost returns are and what's the real benefit to the state of Arkansas for any interaction we have with China, because it needs to be to the taxpayers' benefit.
Absolutely. Well, Dan, thank you so much for joining us, and thank you for that wonderful update about ASA in China, Arkansas and China. We think you're doing a great job. Continue the great work out there, and we look forward to having you again very soon.
Great. And I really appreciate Conduit. Conduit puts out a lot of good articles. I know some of the things that I just talked about, Conduit already has articles out there talking about the specific details of these. So I would encourage the listeners and the people that read these articles to continue to reach out and to be watching what Conduit says and what they put out.
Thank you so much, Dan. We sure appreciate you.
Sure. Thank you.